Hi there, and welcome to part 2 of my tutorial series on scripting a Deathrun map from start to finish. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at making another moving trap. We'll be making a rotating trap. Um, we'll be looking into giving the activator XP for activating his traps, and after all that, we'll also be optimizing our code a bit, cleaning it up mostly. Because it's gonna get a copy and paste mess once we're done with a bunch of traps. Um, so yeah, we'll look at a way of doing that a bit more efficiently. For now though, let's start with the moving trap. I've already set up a trigger um, and this thing here. Basically, this is made up of the frame, which is everything around it. It's just a script brush model with a target name trap2 frame. I've already also set up a uh, water body, um, which is just a script brush model with target name trap2 water. I've also set up a trigger, which is a trigger hurt, with a damage of 50 and a target name of trap2 hurt. Now what trap is going to do is it's basically just going to move this frame from here to here. Now, first things first, let's go into our script, make a new function for this trap. We can copy this one a bit. Just change that to 2, that to 2, remove that, and remove that. Now we can get the frame. So let's get all of the entities in first. Trap2 frame. Let's get target name. Whoop. You are going to be the water, and you're going to be the hurt trigger. Now, I've at the top included a utility script. Basically, what this does is it tells our game to look for this file, and any function in that file we can now call without needing to prefix our function call with this file path. So, for example, utility contains two functions we're going to use right now, which is trigger off and trigger on. So we can just call it by trigger on instead of maps mp utility : trigger on. Now, first function we're going to use is the trigger off function. We're going to call it on our hurt trigger. What this is going to do is it's going to move that hurt trigger way below the map, so our players can't touch it and thus get killed by it. We're also going to hide our water, because we don't want it to be visible before the trap is activated. Now, once the trap has been activated, we're going to want to unhide our water, so show, and we're going to call trigger on the hurt trigger. And that's going to move it back into position so it can actually hurt people again. And we're going to link our water body to the frame. Same thing with our hurt trigger. What that does is basically it tells the game to for the water body and our hurt trigger to make it follow whatever movement the frame does. So if it moves along with it. If it rotates along with it, and so on. Then we're going to want to move our frame along the x-axis, which we can see right here. Now, how far do we want to move it? Let's get a measurement, yeah? That's the amount of space that needs to be between it. So something in there. And then measure the actual distance. Whoop. See, that is 1,456 units. No, because we're going from right to left in our radiant grid, it's going to be minus 1456. For testing purposes, let's do this over 4 seconds with a 1 second acceleration and deceleration. I can get rid of that those helper brushes now. Whoop. Then we're going to want to wait for the movement to be done. Once the frame is done moving, we're going to unlink both the water and the hurt trigger. Oh, unlink. And we're going to delete both of them to free up entities, because we're no longer going to need these. That's that. That should be fine. Let's compile our BSP. No, compile our fast file. I think I've already... Let's compile the BSP just to be sure. Yep. Let's build the fast file. Alright, let's check. I've already also set up a world spawn and everything for this map now, so it doesn't look as retarded anymore. Yeah, you've actually got also set up a singular reflection probe. I'm going to have to add a lot more if once this map is actually, you know, somewhere along the way. Okay, so as we can see, the water's gone, and we can, oh, oops, we can jump through it without taking damage. Let's activate it. Oh, we've got a problem. Entity class name trigger hurt does not currently support link to. Okay, that's an easy fix. So if you get that, FYI, if we're scripting, this is an important thing. Always make sure you've got developer enabled. Developer script, you don't have to. You can enable it. Basically, what that does is it there's this syntax like that, which is basically a developer code block. Anything in here will be ignored unless this here is ticked, which is the dvar developer underscore script. So if that's enabled, it's going to execute any code in that block. It's mostly used for debugging, etc. That said, the link to thing. So the hurt trigger doesn't have link to enabled, our error said. So what we can do is enable link to. Let's call that. And that's going to enable the link to function on our hurt trigger. Recompile. That should work now. So generally speaking, script brush models already have link to enabled and triggers don't. Okay, and that should hurt us. It didn't kill us. I'm gonna make it. Yeah, I'm gonna make it just kill you instantly, I suppose. It's kind of what I was going for anyway. But yeah, it deletes itself, which is fine. So let's just change the damage on it, and then this trap is done. Let's just make it 999. That'll kill the player, definitely. Right, so that's one trap done. Then I've also set up another trap trigger here. Now I haven't set up the actual trap in Radiant yet. So for this, I'm going to rotate these platforms row by row. So I'm going to want to see. Do I want to rotate this as well? Let's not. Oh. Okay, let's just rotate the top part. So let's turn this into a script brush model. Target name trap. Whoa, trap 3. This is going to be row 1. This isn't going to be the prettiest script, but honestly don't see a much better way of doing it. Oh, script. Oh no, individually. Otherwise, we're going to run into trouble with the rotating in through the middle. It's going to be row 2, and this one's also going to be row 2. And also script brush model row 2. Yep, okay. It's going to be row 3. Script brush model row 3. Then we've got this one. It's going to be row 4. Then another row 4. And finally row 5. So set up another trap. Trap 3. We can once again copy this over. Trap 3, trap 3. Get rid of that. Now row 1, trap 3, row 1. Now just for clean code's sake, I'm going to make all of these arrays so I can reuse a bunch of so I can reuse a certain function on it. Row 5, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5. All right. So trap 3 rotate. Let's make a new function for this. Oh, this. Let's move that up. There you go. That's better. So for each individual row, we're going to do this. We're going to call that on the array. So we're going to want to go through all of the elements in the array. I think we've covered the arrays before. Yes, we have. Don't need to explain all of that then. So going to rotate that. Oh, right. Okay. Rotation. Let's see. There's a very handy image here. Okay, so imagine your object is a plane. Now the plane is pointing towards the left here. So just imagine these are your axes in radiant. So since we've got our platforms in radiant, like this, and we want to rotate them, around this thing. Looking at the image, we're going to want rotate yaw. But this is a great reference I almost always use when I'm doing rotating things. Or I can just test it out, which I tend to do if I'm too lazy to go to the forums and look up this image again, because I forget about this thing all the time. Anyway, so we want rotate yaw. We're going to rotate 360 degrees. I also want to rotate in a random direction. Well, a random, yeah, like either clockwise or counterclockwise, but I want to do that randomly. Also rotate in like, I don't know, like 1.5 seconds. Actually 1 second with a 0.5 and 0.5 acceleration and deceleration. Wait, now I'm doing it on the array. I need to do it on the actual thing. Okay, and then wait, which is going to be 2 seconds. Okay, so for each one, I want a random direction. If random int 100 below 50, direction is 1, else direction is -1. Now what this is going to do is it's going to generate a random integer, which is a whole number between 0 and 99. So it's whatever number you enter here minus 1. And if that is below 50, then we're going to set the direction to 1, which is going to be clockwise, and then -1 is counterclockwise. Then we're going to multiply this by direction, so we get either 360 or -360, and that's that. Then we're going to want to go through each row. Actually, I can do this in a much prettier way. Rows is empty array. I'm gonna put all of these into an array. Rows.size. Now what this is doing is basically, instead of having to manually call row 2, row 3, whatever, I'm just going to put them all in an array. And here I'm initializing an empty array, and then rows.size. This means that at the element with the index rows.size, which right now is 0, and once there's one element in it, it's 1. So it's an easy way of just appending new elements to the array. So that element is going to be an array of whatever entities have this target name, and so on. So I'm just going to copy this a bunch of times. It's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5. Gone. Oh. Okay. So then we can just loop through it. For I is 0, I below rows.size, I plus plus. Rows I trap 3 rotate. It's as simple as that. Actually, we want to do this endlessly. So let's put it in an infinite loop. There's no arguments here. This could also be a while true or while 1. True and 1 is basically the same thing. True is literally just the number 1, really. So that's the same as this. Since this has no condition, it will just keep going. This has a wait built in, although this is a bit of a weird... Codeful shouldn't bitch about this, really. Right, let's see. Compile. That should, in theory, work. So, yeah, basically what I'm doing here is, in an infinite loop, go through all of the rows, and for each row, just call the trap3 rotate function. And this one's gonna individually go through all of the brushes in the in this array and rotate them. Right, you've compiled. Run. No clip. Right. That rotates that. That rotates that. That rotates that. Speed is fine, I'd say. Yeah. And it's just going to keep doing that. This is for next video. This is going to be an elevator. That's going to go around this pole and up. So, now that we've done that, we probably want to get the player to get some XP when he's activating traps. To do that, we're going to write an add trigger to list function. It's a fairly simple function. There's two parts it's going to consist of. First, we're going to actually, I should probably explain how Deathrun handles trap triggers first. Basically, there's a global variable containing an array of triggers in the mod that at the start of the round it'll go through and make all of them give you XP once you activate them. So first things first, it's important that this happens before any wait is called. Otherwise, it won't add them to the actual trap trigger list. This is a mistake I see fairly commonly. I've had to fix it in a bunch of FNRP maps, for example, for raid. So yeah, basically never add a wait before you're calling the add trigger to list function. So first things first, we're going to want to check if the global variable for this trap trigger array has been defined. Now, if I recall correctly, it is, wait, let's see, if is defined, which we can check, which we can use to check if this variable has been defined. So if is defined level dot trap triggers, I think. I'm going to check real quick. Add trigger to list. Oh, this is a whole nother function. Position of icon above trap. Yeah, I don't use this at all, ever. So, yeah, it's level dot trap triggers. Okay. Actually, if not is defined. So if it's not defined, then we want to initialize a new array. And then, just like with the third trap, let's get the size of it, and at that index, put our get an entity. With a target name. Need to pass it to the function. Yeah, okay. That's our add trigger to list function. Now, to actually use this, it's fairly simple. What we want to do is, let's go to our trap one. So, let's do this here. Add trigger to list trap one trig. We're going to want to do this for each trap. Now, I technically speaking don't really have a way of testing this right now, unless actually there's a plugin I could use. Yeah, let's copy paste that plugin real quick. That is located here. Plugins. Actually, is it? No, it's not. Is it in Deathrun Dev Alt? No. This one? No, it's not. Okay. In that case, I'm going to pull this off screen and just copy it from Raids one. Plugins. Is it this one? I think it is. Yeah. Let's see. going to load that plugin. Disgusting. That's better. Plugins, Actial, init, Actial, whatever. Don't care who made it. Just use it. Right, let's compile that. So technically speaking, it should now activate the traps for us. And if it does, then they're also in the list for XP. There you go, that's trap 1, trap 2 has been activated, and trap 3. Alright, that's good. So, one thing now, as you've noticed, we've been copy pasting a lot. This can be a lot more efficient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a general function to create a trap. So let's call it make trap. Now this is going to take 2 arguments. One is going to be a target name for the trap trigger, and the other one is going to be a callback. I'll come back to this in a second and explain what it is. But let's get our basic trap initialization done first. So the only entity we're going to want to get in here is the actual trap trigger. So get end. Using that target name we pass to the function, target name. Then we're going to want to call this on that. And before we do that, we also want to let's not, this is inefficient, let's just do self. So instead of getting the entity here, I'm just going to call add trigger to list on that function, or on that trigger entity. So in here, we're going to trig add trigger to list. Better. Now, for the callback. To illustrate this, I should probably, let's see, let's get rid of that. I should write an example call, make trap, trap 1 trig. Now, this is how we're going to actually do this. Now, this syntax here, this is basically just going to pass a reference to the trap1 function here to our make trap function. And we can use that reference to call a callback. Basically this here is just, it's getting the reference to that callback function which we passed, which is in this case trap1, and it's going to call it. So it's literally just the same as if we were to do trap1, but instead we can pass it as a variable to as an argument to our function. Space it out a bit, make it neat. So we're going to do this for all traps. Trap 3, trap 2, and we can get rid of that. Now, cleanup. We can get rid of this. We can get rid of this. Boom. Trap1 function suddenly became a lot shorter and there's no duplicate code in here anymore. So basically, once a trap has been activated here, it's waiting, it's going to call this function, which is just going to go through the code necessary to actually make our trap do something. Then trap 2, want to get rid of the trigger again. Get rid of the trigger. Now we've got a problem in trap 2, which is this bit here needs to happen before the trap is actually activated. Now I haven't necessarily found a perfect way of doing this. That said, the way I tend to do it is fine. It's not ideal, but seeing as having to do something before the trap is activated isn't extremely common unless you're working with like hurt triggers or having to hide something. It's fine. So I'm going to want to thread a disable traps function. Let's make that disable traps. Actually, don't need to thread that. Just call it. Let's not be wasteful. So I want the water and hurt entity. So I'm going to copy this and get rid of this. Boom. Going to prefix this with trap 2 water. Trap 2 hurt. So we're going to hide the water and we're going to call trigger off on the hurt trigger. Simple. Actually, trap 2 hurt. We don't need the variable because we're only doing one thing with them. So this is perfectly fine. I've just replaced the variable with the actual get end call here, which is exactly the same. It's just not storing it in a variable for later use. Then the trap 3 function, we can get rid of this trigger, and that's here. And this should work just fine. Let's see. Build fast file. Run the map. That should now activate that after a few seconds. That's activated. That's activated. That's activated. So, as we can see, that works now. And there's no duplicate code anymore. So, much better. If anyone has any questions regarding this still, since I might not have explained it perfectly, do feel free to ask in the comments down below, and I'll try to answer any questions you have. If anyone has any other questions, also feel free to ask. For now, that's it for this video. In the next episode, we'll go over that, making this little elevator thing here. And we'll do another type of trap, probably. I'm not sure what I'll do for the next episode yet. But yeah, I'll try to do something new. Yeah, we've got an elevator here. So yeah, for now, that's it. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've learned something new. As always, leave a comment down below suggesting whatever you want to see covered in this tutorial series. And yeah, as I said, I hope you've learned something useful and enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.